Hi everyone, it's Nancy with Real Mom Real Solutions. For any of you that do not know me, I'm a mother of 17. I have 5 married kids, 15 grandkids, 12 kids still living at home from 2 to 18. My oldest kid is 27 years old. So I have a pretty wide range of experience in raising kids. I had several comments requesting a video on how to get your baby to sleep through the night. So that is what we're going to focus on today. If you enjoy videos like this, please like and subscribe and share. And let's get started. So I have noticed with pretty much every single one of my babies, their schedule almost seems to be opposite of what it should be when they're first born. They seem to want to stay up all night. They don't go to sleep till maybe 3, 4 in the morning, and then they sleep all day long. And then anyway, and it's like the opposite of what it should be. So your goal is to reverse that and get it in line with where it needs to be. You can actually do this pretty quickly. I have had some sleeping through the night as early as 6 weeks, but that's very, very rare. For me anyways. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that have done it that early on a regular basis, but mine are usually sleeping through the night by about week 8. So there are several factors and things that can come into play on helping your baby to sleep through the night, but the very biggest and most important thing is their schedule. If you get them on a good schedule, then it's almost a guarantee that they will sleep through the night. A baby's schedule should consist of eating, having wake time, and then sleep. And that's it when they're newborn. That's all that they do, and it's just repetitive: eat, wake, and then sleep. Eat, wake, sleep. And it does need to be in that order. It is better if your baby does not go to sleep with a bottle or go to sleep eating. You want to actually, when they wake, you want them to be able to eat. So when they wake, then they've had a good long nap. It's been a while since they ate, and they wake up and they're hungry. So you feed them, and then after they eat, then they have a wake time, and they are, just wide awake. That's when you talk to them and play with them and whatever, or they just sit there and lay there and be good. Then they go to sleep. So it's every 2.5 to 3 hours is when a new baby will eat. It's usually closer to 3 hours, but the first couple weeks could be, sometimes occasionally 2.5 hours. But it's somewhere right around in there, and then it quickly goes up to about 3 hours, and it can go up between like 3.5, and as they get quite a bit older, then it can go up to 4 hours. But it's usually, so on average, it's about every 3 hours that they eat. So you simply start their schedule off of that. When you do a feeding, make sure that you feed them all the way. That's something that is very, very important. There are a lot of times the baby will get used to just kind of partially satisfying themselves, or you'll just assume they're done. Make sure that they actually are completely satisfied. So once you feed them, burp them, try to feed them again, burp them, and make sure that they are, you can even try a third time if you feel like there's still a question there. And it is nice to even measure what they're eating. I know it's difficult when you're nursing. You can't really tell how much they're getting. And I do know of a lot of people that will actually pump out and then feed them with the bottle so that they can measure and know how much their baby is getting. I'm not saying one or the other is better. Whatever works for you is great. But you do want to just make sure that they are getting enough and that they are getting full off of that feeding so that they're not going to be hungry again in an hour. If your baby is really fussy all the time and they always act like they're hungry, but yet they hardly eat anything, there is a chance that they are not getting enough food simply because you're not working right or your bottle is not working right. There was one of my babies that I had, and the baby right before I had nursed perfectly fine. Everything went great, and the baby got plenty, and I nursed for quite a while. Everything worked out great. So the next baby I planned on nursing again, and I didn't purchase any formula, anything like that, because of course, I'm just planning on nursing. I was feeding the baby, and she just was always acting like she was hungry. Something just seemed off. So then the next day, I tried pumping out to make sure and to see how much the baby's actually getting, and I got like nothing, and the baby was not getting anything, and she was really hungry. Anyway, so then I sent my husband to the store to purchase some formula, and she ate it right up, and everything changed. Like, it was so much better. Anyway, and for some reason, I just was not able to nurse that time, and I continued to try, and we just supplemented with formula. but for some reason it just didn't work that time. And I've had other babies where I tried feeding them the bottle right off the bat, and same problem. They would act like they were starving. They'd eat and eat and eat, and you're thinking, okay, everything is going to be good. They get done and they hardly ate anything, and they're all worn out and they're tired, and and you think, okay, well, I guess maybe that's all they needed. And then a couple, like a half hour later, they're hungry again, and it's because the nipple on the bottle is not working right. And a lot of the newborn nipples, they're made for a newborn, so they have a smaller hole in them, which works fine when the baby is anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks old. But when they are really young, when they're like newborn, and even up to 6 weeks, then a lot of times they just are not strong enough to put the right pressure on the nipples of the bottles to get the milk to come out right. And they'll suck forever and wear themselves out, and they won't get any food. And so sometimes you have to poke a hole in the nipple or bite a hole in the nipple, whatever you need to do to be able to make sure that that baby is actually getting food. And then once they get old enough and strong enough and their mouth muscles develop a little bit, then they're usually able to use the nipple the right way, and you no longer need the one with the hole in it. And a lot of times if you use the one with the hole in it, they'll actually act like they're kind of drowning and it's giving them a little too much. But those first few weeks, sometimes they need that one. So always, always, always check the nipple of the bottle and make sure that the baby is actually able to get enough food. And if something just doesn't seem right, whether you're nursing or the bottle, because like I said, I've had it both ways. I've had problems where I was not giving the baby enough, and I've had problems where the nipple on the bottle was not giving the baby enough. So always check that and make sure that it is working proper for your baby. I never noticed this problem with my earlier kids, but my later kids, then that's when I started noticing a lot of times there were problems with the nipples of the bottles, and it's because they now have the feature of the no drip nipple. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So here I've got a bottle, I just have some water in it, and when you tip it upside down, it will not drip, which is a really neat feature when the baby is old enough to make the bottle work correctly. But when they're newborn, then their mouth is not strong enough to squeeze the rubber nipple enough to make the formula come out. So when they suck on it, it's just not getting anything to come out. In order to get the formula to come out, or the milk to come out, then they have to squeeze pretty hard on the nipple. And right those first couple of weeks, then their mouth just doesn't seem to be strong enough. Some babies will be strong enough, and sometimes they won't have a problem at all. But especially if it's a preemie, and in fact, most newborns that I've noticed lately have a hard time with it the first couple of weeks. And so if you just simply bite a little hole in it or poke a hole in it to where it will drip slightly when you tip it upside down, then it seems to work great. They're able to eat just fine. And then when they get a little bit older, even just a few weeks older, and they are strong enough to actually push on the nipple the right way and get it to come out, then you can switch it over to a regular nipple that does not have your hole in it, and they will eat just fine. If your baby is fussy at all and always acts hungry but hardly eats anything, always, always, always check the nipple and make sure that they are actually able to get the milk out. And again, even if you are nursing, that can be the case. You may not be producing as much as you think you are. Make sure, or sometimes it's just simply not coming out, even though you're full of milk, or you have clogged ducts. There is different things that can make so that they just can't get the milk out. So anyway, just always check for those things if you have an extra fussy baby. So the first key is to make sure that they are fully satisfied with their feeding. And then once they are finished eating, you try to keep them awake. And if you need to change their diaper, if they start getting sleepy and it's not time for them to sleep yet, or they barely got done eating and they start getting sleepy again, you can change their diaper, change their clothes, wiggle them around, play with them, try to keep them awake and let them have some sort of awake time. And then once they fall asleep, then they should sleep all the way up until it is time for their next feeding. So which would be anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours when they're super, super little, but on average about 3 hours. A lot of people feel like that they have to give their baby a bottle to help them to go to sleep. You don't need to do that. Binkies or pacifiers are a really good tool for that, especially if your baby is used to going to sleep with the bottle and you're just now trying to fix it. Using a pacifier or a binky can help a lot. And in fact, I think pacifiers are like your best friend. I highly recommend them. However, I know that you don't want them to be on a pacifier for a very, very long time. And honestly, I haven't had much of a problem with that. Most of my babies like them right when they're born, but within even a few months, then they just don't want them anymore. They don't take them anymore. So I haven't had an issue with that. I know that there are some kids that get addicted to them, and I know that they can like kind of form their teeth to come in wrong and things like that. So I'm not saying that you want them to be on a pacifier forever, but in the first few months, it does help a lot to keep them on a schedule. A lot of you have probably experienced when you're feeding your baby and you realize that they're not really eating. They're just basically using the bottle or using you as a pacifier. And it's just more of a comfort thing to them. So that's when the pacifier comes in handy, because sometimes they do use that as a comfort thing to be able to fall asleep. And so if you use the pacifier, it helps a lot with that. When that next feeding time comes around, if they are still asleep, like I said, there is a half-hour leeway, so you can let them sleep a little bit longer, but not much. If they don't wake up within that half-hour time frame, you want to wake them up. You're trying to change their schedule. Right now, they are trying to sleep a lot during the day, and then they're awake a lot at night. You're trying to reverse that. So you want to make sure that they wake up to eat on time and they don't sleep through that feeding. You want when they sleep through a feeding, that needs to be the middle of the night feeding, not during the day. So don't let them sleep through that feeding during the day. Wake them up, wiggle them around, change their diaper, change their clothes, do whatever you can to get them nice and awake, feed them and make sure they have another full feeding and burp them in between, feed them again, make sure that they are nice and full, and then try to help them to have another wake period before they fall asleep again. And then again, it should be about 3 hours before they wake again for their next feeding. If you will do that, and it will be kind of tough at times because, like I said, their schedule does seem to be reversed at the beginning, and there are times when they will sleep for hours and they'll barely wake up and just barely enough to eat. They'll eat even half a feeding and then they go back to sleep. You've got to you're trying to break that and get that to be in the middle of the night instead of during the day. That's the key of getting them to sleep through the night. You just keep working at it, and pay attention to what time it is when they first wake up in the morning. Then that's when your feedings start. Once you have them on a good schedule and they're eating every 3 hours, it is usually the same. They wake up almost the same time every day, and it'll be they'll wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, so their feedings are going to be at 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, and it'll be very consistent, and you will just know, oh, if it's not one of those times, it's not time for them to eat, and it actually makes it really simple. But getting them to that point sometimes can take a little while, so you just pay attention when they first wake up, what time it is when you're feeding them, and make note in your mind or even on a paper or on your phone or whatever. Set an alarm for 3 hours and know that, okay, that's when they need to eat again. And that's what your goal feeding should be. There will be some frustration at the beginning. They will want to sleep when they should be awake. They'll be awake when they should be sleeping. But you have to try to adjust them the very best you can. It's not going to be perfect. You can't make a baby sleep and you can't make a baby wake up, but you can try and you can slowly adjust them. That's why it takes your 6 to 8 weeks of slowly adjusting, and then at that point, then they're usually sleeping through the night. And sleeping through the night, for me, like 6 hours is a win. If they will sleep from midnight to 6 o'clock straight, and then that's considered sleeping through the night. Now, ideally, and as they get a little bit older, they for sure will start to go to bed earlier than that. But when they're super young, don't expect that they will be sleeping for 9 straight hours necessarily. It will slowly get there. But when I say that they're sleeping through the night at 8 weeks, it's more like a 6-hour period that they're sleeping. They'll do their feeding at 9 o'clock, and you get them settled, but don't encourage a wake time after that, especially while they're adjusting. Just do a quiet feeding with the lights off. A lot of times then people will think, well, my baby doesn't go to sleep until midnight anyways, so they will watch a movie all the way till midnight every single night. That's a guarantee. Your baby will never go to sleep until midnight doing that. You do have to give them that quiet time. So turn off the lights after you feed them at 9 o'clock or whatever time their last feeding is for the night. After you feed them, dim your lights, just have a small night light on or something. Have it to where they realize that it is nighttime, that the TV's not blasting, your phone's not blasting, and they don't have a lot of noise keeping them awake, that it is a calm environment ready for them to sleep. And they will adjust a lot quicker that way. So right at the very beginning, when they are waking up in the middle of the night for feeding, make sure that you keep the lights dim, that you feed them quietly, you don't encourage a wake time, and that you get them to where they can just eat and go right back to sleep. Then even when they're not quite sleeping all the way through the night, it's not a full-fledged, you're up and can't go back to sleep for hours on end. I think every one of my babies have had a fussy hour, and the fussy hour is usually right before they're ready to go to bed for the night, and they seem to just cry, and you think, okay, wait, they already ate, they've been changed, they have everything they need, why are they so fussy? When they are super, super young, when they are newborn, they don't have any other outlet to get rid of their energy. They can't run around and play, they don't have any way of getting rid of their energy. And when they cry, it actually is a way of releasing their energy and getting ready for the night. So don't let that be alarming. It's okay for them to cry as long as you know that their needs have all been met. And don't let them cry for more than 10 minutes without going in and trying to settle them. But most babies do have a fussy hour right before they're ready to sleep for the night. And it's just simply them getting rid of their energy and getting ready for a good long night of sleep, hopefully. Just expect it, realize what it is. A lot of times people think, well, there's got to be a reason. Maybe they're colicky, maybe they're whatever. If you find that it's consistently every single night around a certain time, they seem to just have that fussy hour. That's all it is. So just make sure their needs are met. But when they do cry a lot, then it does give them air bubbles. And so that's why you don't let them cry for more than 10 minutes without going in and settling them, picking them up, burping them, because there's a good chance that they've gotten an air bubble by then. Just kind of settle them, check their diaper, make sure that they're okay and that all their needs have been met. And then it's okay to lay them down and let them cry again. Like I said, it's just getting their energy out and getting them ready for a good night's sleep. As they get older, then that fussy hour slowly will go away, and it won't be there because as they get older, they're able to get their energy out in other ways. So I have also had it where my babies will not have a sleep time in their last feeding of the day. So maybe they'll eat around 9 o'clock and they'll be wide awake, and you think, okay, it's time to get settled down for bed, and they simply will not go to sleep. And then they have their ornery hour and they're super fussy and they're crying a lot and getting all their energy out. And then before you know it, it's time for them to eat again. And you're like, dude, they haven't even fallen asleep yet. That's okay. When that happens, that means they're going to sleep really good that night. And then you feed them that next feeding, and then you let them go right to sleep after they finish that feeding, and then they will sleep through the night. So I have had times when there was no sleep in that cycle. As long as it's right before bed, then that actually can be okay, because it's just getting the last of their energy out and getting ready for a good night's sleep. So a quick recap, the things that will help your baby to be able to sleep through the night. Number one big thing is their schedule, and things that will help them to stay on their schedule. Make sure that you feed them all the way, that they are getting enough and that they are getting full off of that feeding, so that they're not going to be hungry again in an hour. And use changing their diaper and changing their clothes whenever it's needed, whether it is to wake them up to feed them or to keep them awake after you feed them. You can change their diaper even multiple times if you need to, or whatever you need to keep them on that schedule when you were first training them. Using pacifiers. A lot of babies will have that comfort thing that they need to go to sleep. So you can use a pacifier at least for the first little while before they start getting teeth and things. Creating a calm environment when it is time for bed. Every baby is different. I've had some that really like to cuddle and be swaddled, and they know once they get swaddled, they kind of know that it's time to go to sleep, and it kind of helps them to calm down and to sleep. Some babies cannot stand to be cuddled, and they will fight it, and you finally let them out, and then they fall asleep with their arms out. I have had kids both ways, so you kind of learn what works for your baby. Every single night around a certain time, they seem to just have that fussy hour. Just expect it, realize what it is, so just make sure their needs are met, and it's just simply them getting rid of their energy and getting ready for a good long night of sleep, hopefully. I think that pretty well sums it up though. If you have any further questions on this, or if there are any other topics you'd like me to cover, please comment below, and thank you for watching.